Welcome back. I'm Ana Maria Salazar. Thank you so much for joining us here and living in Mexico. I am sure you've been following very closely the statements and the position made by President Donald Trump this week, where he basically is imposing tariffs on products on above all, these are automobile cars that are imported into the United States. It doesn't matter from what part of the world this is, and this has enormous impact, as you can imagine, on Mexico's exports because Mexico exports a lot of cars to the United States as well as Canada. What's been interesting is that both countries have had different reactions, and we'll probably be talking about that. I'm at this point, I think every country that exports autos to the United States, it's in shock because there was a certain expectation that this was going to happen, but not this way. And of course, there was also hopes that the threat of the impact on the world economy would be sufficient to stop President Donald Trump. That also hasn't happened. So to talk about this, I really appreciate today's guest. He's been joining us throughout the years. Is Sergio Negrete. He's a professor at ITAM. He's in Barcelona. Is that right? You're in Barcelona right
I
now,
am in Barcelona. Yes.
joining us from Europe, which gives you an eye view of how the Europeans are reacting to this. But just let's describe for our audience in general terms what has been the impact of this statement made by President Donald Trump on the world economy, and then we'll talk about the impact on Mexico. Welcome to the show, Professor.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ana Maria. Well, obviously, you mentioned this. I mean, this has been wholly unexpected in the sense that the initial reaction that the world and the US markets, particularly,
Mhm.
the NASDAQ and the SAP, all the Dow Jones, the way they reacted so heavily with such
Mhm.
pessimism. Well, it was expected that this would have been a tough lesson for Trump. And I
Mhm.
suppose it was. Maybe things would be much worse, but still, as you point out, he still is forging ahead with these tariffs. And in that sense, it's a very negative sign for the whole of the world. It's going to impact many countries.
Mhm.
Mexico, I mean, Mexico is already losing growth. Its economy is really falling well behind what we would like. So in that sense, we cannot discard the option, the possibility that Mexico will fall into a recession.
Really,
That's quite
really.
possible. Yes.
So
Oh,
let
yes.
let's talk about that. I mean, currently the Mexican economy is has even before Trump came into office. I mean, there was concerns about the Mexican economy in part because of decisions made by the Mexican government, but in part because there seems to be a worldwide concern in terms of what how unstable a Trump administration would be for the world order, the world as we know it, and for free trade. I mean, I was quite shocked that Canada has been threatening with to go to the World Trade Organization, right? The Commerce Organization. And you know what Trump did also this week? He just basically said, I don't care what the World Commerce Organization thinks about this. We're just going to cut all the money that we provide to the OMC. So it's interesting that part of the problem is there's just no recourse for the countries that are going to be affected by this. So the question mark is, how bad do you think it's going to get? Let's talk about the world economy, and then let's talk about Mexico.
Very bad in the sense as you point out, Trump doesn't care. He really believes that he is in a position to impose many things on the rest of the world. And he's not really that wrong. I mean, obviously, the US economy is central, powerful,
Mhm.
relevant to so many countries. So, in that sense, he really has a lot of cards to play. And he
Mhm.
loves to think himself as a big negotiator, somebody who can really, achieve a lot of results through these kind of rough, very
Mhm.
tough uh,
Mhm.
tactics that nobody previously had followed. And in that sense, he's correct. I mean, he is basically saying, I don't have to follow any rules because I am the big player here.
The
Practically
big
speaking,
boy.
I
Yeah.
am the owner of the ball, so we have to play the way I want to play. So forget all the rule books, everything. And in that sense, really, the problem is that he's confronting everybody in Canada. Well, if you think about Mexico, for example, well, we always had our issues. We don't have this common ground, language, past, even the colonial past. I think they see each other, I don't know if as brothers, the US and Canadians, but at the very least as cousins. And that's not the case of Mexico, oh, certainly. So I'm not surprised that the Canadians are really shocked, offended,
Right.
angry by all this. I mean, that they really feel a treason from a close partner, that is the US. And instead, he's getting near to Russia,
Yeah.
to Vladimir Putin. I don't know where this sympathy, this nearness, or for dictators or authoritarian regimes comes from. But well, that's Donald Trump.
Well, what's happening in Europe right now? I mean, in terms of what is going to be the reaction of Europe? I know Europe took a couple of steps this week trying to react to this announcement of the tariffs for cars imported into the United States, and a lot of countries, big industries in Europe will be affected just by this. This is just automobiles. The problem is what's going to happen on April 2nd, that we're talking about reciprocal tariffs, which is an additional shock to the system. I'm just trying to understand, like for Mexico, how Mexico, how bad do you think it could get? I mean, do
Very,
you have
very
any
bad.
sense? Are we talking
Yes.
about, yeah, give us a sense, give us some examples.
An example is that I think at least it would shave off Mexican growth for this year. Let's
Yeah,
say half percentage point.
right.
That's a lot for at least, so if you were going to grow 0.3%, well, now that's going to be minus 0.2.
Right.
And that's really possible because we were already growing quite slowly. 2024, we grew 1.5%. But the last quarter was 0.5. So really, 2025, if we got to 1% growth, that would have been a lot. And that's not going to happen any longer because of Trump and because of also the Mexican domestic policies. So, yes, we cannot really discard the possibility that we have a recession, not a huge one, not COVID 2020.
So, oh
Or,
gosh, no.
No.
But it will be an interesting recession that as 2020, it was a worldwide recession. Do you think this is going to be there's going to be a worldwide impact on some of
Oh,
these
yes.
decisions made
Oh, by all
by
means.
President Kim?
What you can talk about is a worldwide break of growth, reduction of growth. You keep growing, but instead of 1.5, 1.2, or 1.0. Oh, no, that's beyond doubt. I mean, we are not talking about a global recession, of course not, but certainly we are talking about a global loss of economic esteem, of speed. So certainly, no doubt.
So this would translate into unemployment. It would translate into the lack of investment. Just give us more details as to what this means for Mexico, and then on Mexican exports. I mean, the problem is we assume that if these tariffs kick in, that Mexican products are going to be much more expensive in the United States. So, but does that mean that they won't import Mexican products anymore, even though they're more expensive?
It can happen. No, what you have is that you import less. I mean, something turns out to be more expensive. Therefore, well, you buy less of that product. And possibly, but we don't know because particularly the car industry, the auto industry, the parts it's so integrated. You really have the whole of North America.
Right. Right.
manufacturing chains really, really fully integrated.
Hmm.
So we don't know exactly what's going to happen. I mean, what you're going to have for certain is less trade. Obviously,
Right.
that's for sure. Less exports from Mexico,
Hmm.
less imports from the United States. Whether that will translate into a smaller trade account deficit,
Hmm.
that's something that Trump wants. We're not
Right.
certain about that. That may not happen.
Let
But
me ask, yeah, let
yes,
me ask you one last question because we're running out of time. I mean,
sure.
I remember in prior crisis, economic crisis, I've been on the air way too long. This program is almost 20 years, it's 20 years old, in fact. But I remember in prior crisis that the Mexican government would take what they call contracyclical, they would implement a contracyclical strategy. Do you think what could the Mexican government be doing right now?
Not so much. I mean, what the Mexican government would allow to happen is for the peso to depreciate.
Hmm.
So maybe there that way you may compensate somewhat
Right.
the tariffs. But
Hmm.
other than that, the Mexican government, because of 2024, the expansive fiscal policies of the Lopez
Hmm.
Obrador administration in its last year,
Hmm.
really the fiscal deficit ran out of control. It was nearly 6% of GDP. So
Right.
right now, I mean, you implement this kind of counter-cyclical measures
Hmm.
when you have the powder to do it.
Hmm.
But no, we don't have really the margin, the elbow room.
Right, to do
We don't
it.
have it. No, the
Hmm.
fiscal elbow room, no, it's gone.
Hmm.
So there's nothing much we can do fiscally other than really expecting that maybe, the peso may depreciate, compensate
Hmm.
somewhat. But other than that, no, there's no space for that.
Wow. Professor Sergio Negrete Cárdenas from Barcelona, thank you so much for joining us. Just remind us about your book. I know it's still
Oh, thank you.
available in Amazon's. What's the name of the book?
The name of the book, De AMLO a Sheinbaum,
Hmm.
Decadencia económica y conquista política que continuará.
Hmm.
It's, the whole, an economic overview of the Lopez Obrador
Oh,
administration and
hmm.
the
And,
legacy the,
and the
that,
impact, the
that,
impact it's
that,
having today.
yes,
Wow.
absolutely.
Anyway, I know you can find that book on Amazon, so I hope
It is,
people
it
take
is
some
there.
steps to to uh to obtain this book. Thank you so much for joining
Thank you. No,
us.
thank you, Ana Maria.
And I appreciate all of you joining us here on Living in Mexico. Don't go away. We'll be right back.